We've been going through team by team and their offseason outlook leading into the 2026 NBA draft. On today's episode, we're going to talk about one of the more interesting teams this offseason, and that's the Toronto Raptors, because this is not a team that's far, far away, right? They pushed the Cleveland Cavaliers to 7 games. Scottie Barnes looked like a star this season. He's continued to grow and develop. You got Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett. There's real talent with this Toronto Raptors team. They also had one of the young and upstart rookies in Colin Murray Boyles as well, have a pretty solid playoff run for them as well. Now, they do have some questions that they have to. The playoffs did expose a little bit of the truth for the Toronto Raptors. They have some serious flaws. Spacing's too tight. The half-court offense got ugly at times, and the big man fit is a huge question there. Now we got rumors around Gradey Dick, Jakob Poeltl, Jamal Shead, and more. What does Toronto Raptors do with the number 19 pick? And today, we're going to answer the big questions. Are the Raptors one move away? Now, does this team need a real shakeup? We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball and NBA related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform. Make sure you guys also hit that subscribe button, right? We are trying to get to the goal of 5,000 subscribers on this channel. About 60% of you guys that watch this channel lately here with every video we've been posting are not subscribed to the channel. So just make sure you hit that subscribe button. With that said, we're going to go through it as we do everything here. We handle everything as a debate kind of angle, right? We talk about both sides of topics here. And so one we're going to talk about first are how close are the Toronto Raptors actually? I think that is one of the key questions for this Raptors team this offseason that they have to answer, and answer it honestly, is how far away are they, right? Did the 7-game battle with the Cleveland Cavaliers prove that they're close, or did it actually expose more of their ceiling, right? And that's a fair question here. Let's talk about the first side of this, that they're actually close, right? Scotty Barnes is a rising talent in this league. And, for a player that, some people had some doubts on if he was going to make that next step, I think last season did a really good job at showing and proving that Scotty Barnes is ready to continue to make that next step and grow and develop. And the Toronto Raptors are going to try to continue to build around Scotty Barnes. Right now, you're talking about a player that averaged 18 points per game, which many would say, well, how has he proven something at that? You got to look at the actual game of basketball. I'll tell you what, if you were just looking at the stat sheet and trying to ascertain how good Scotty Barnes is, you're doing yourself a huge disfavor in doing that, right? The 18 points per game was a byproduct of how they like to play basketball, but also don't overlook every way that he impacts the game. 7.5 rebounds, 5.9 assists, 50% shooting from the field, only 30% shooting from three-point range, but then also the two-way ability of a Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes is a player that impacts both sides of the game of basketball, and we've already seen how players like that can really change it. When your best player is a legit two-way player and also is very unselfish, which I think those 6 assists compared to only 2.6 turnovers per game, how that goes, right? Like, it shows you what Scotty Barnes can do. Now, I will say this, the Raptors as a roster are missing some things, and we'll talk about that as we go through this overall, but that's one of the first things, right? That you have to, if you're looking at this situation and trying to say, how close are they? Scotty Barnes is a huge question there. How much do you think Scotty Barnes is to a finished product, and how much higher do you think his ceiling can continue to be, right? I think Brandon Ingram also gives you shot creation. RJ Barrett, when he gets downhill, he fits that identity there as a slasher for this team. And this team finished as a playoff caliber talent that competed hard on both sides of the ball. But let's talk about the other side of it. Why are the Raptors not there yet? And you have to decide how far away are you. Is that I think that the lack of half-court creation was very much so exposed in that playoff series, and you need that, right? Like, I'm not saying that everything has to be all in the half court, but if a team is able to force you to be a half-court team and your offensive stagnation stands out so loudly when teams force that, it just gives you what teams are going to try to do to you, especially in a 7-game playoff series as things adapt, right? And I do think that this is a Raptors team now that has to look at things, not just do the regular season, but also how are they going to play playoff basketball, right? I think the inconsistent bench scoring of that team definitely stands out. The spacing concerns are there as well. And this roster and the style of play may not be flexible enough for consistent postseason basketball. And I say may because, again, you're looking at some more internal development and things to be done about this team. The Toronto Raptors should feel very encouraged by how the 2025-26 season went for them, but they should not feel comfortable, if that makes sense, right? The worst thing that they can do is misevaluate how close they really are to being a finished product as a team. That is the worst place to be in, is that if you misguide how close you are to a finished product. And I'm not saying that I think that the Toronto Raptors are going to do that. They seem like a team that's always looking to improve and things like that. But in just having this conversation, you have to talk about both sides of it, right? So then you have to look at who are some of those players. We talked about Scottie Barnes that can still, develop, right? And, with that, RJ Barrett is pretty much who he is as a player. Not to say that I never counted any player to refine, but you have that. You have Brandon Ingram, who I think is pretty much who he is as a player as well. So where you're going to have to move or make that improvements comes down to your evaluation of some other pieces. One of those pieces could be Gradey Dick. Right now, there has been some offseason talk in regards to what the future of I said Gradey Dick. I'm sorry. I'm a Bears fan. Gradey Dick is our defensive tackle. Gradey Dick, right? And the evaluation that you have on him. Gradey Dick is 22 years old. Keep in mind, he was a lottery pick for them back in 2023. He's now played 3 seasons in the NBA. And after averaging 14.4 points per game in 2024-26, where he shot the ball 35% from 3 and 41% from the field, Gradey Dick saw his opportunities get cut drastically. He went from getting 12 shots per game to only 5.1 shots per game this last season. He did play in 76 games, but only 14 minutes. That is the lowest mark of his NBA career, and he averaged 6 points per game with that. So there has been some reports that there are some frustration around Gradey Dick and that. So I think when you look at Gradey Dick and has he played his last game in Toronto, you have to look at him, right? The side to trade him is that clearly his role declined, which I think that shows kind of how Darko envisions him and wants to use him as a player. His playoff usage completely disappeared, right? And Toronto may need players that are more ready to contribute now and be in that place where they're looking for players who can contribute now. Let's talk about the side to keep him. He's a former first-round pick. There's still some value there. And if you sell low on Gradey Dick and he ends up going and developing, and we already saw him average double-digit points, takes that even a step further, you could go back to regret that, right? So if Gradey is not going to be part of your long-term rotation and your plan there, I think that the Toronto Raptors do need to have an honest evaluation of that. Stop pretending and use him in a package before his trade value dips any lower. Because if you come into the season and he has another season where he's averaging less than 15 minutes per game, that value is just not going to be there. And if they want to extract that value, this is now. You can probably sell it on, hey, listen, he just got phased out because of X, because of this, and try to maximize the value now. I think that may be the question that you have to answer long-term with Gradey Dick, and they may have to answer that this offseason, right? And then the other player that's on this roster is Jakob Poeltl, that I think you have to ask yourself a major decision on what the future of him. I think, if you ask Toronto Raptors fans and if you ask kind of general NBA media, a lot of people think Jakob Poeltl's on his way out. Now, I don't think it's going to be as easy as just saying we don't want Jakob, we're going to trade him, those type of things, because of the size of that contract that he has there. But I do think with where the Torontos are at financially, if you're able to find somebody that's willing to take on that contract, no matter what you get back or don't, you may have to do that. Now, one could say that, you could have to end up giving up assets, whether that's future trade picks or whatever, to be able to really come off that deal. And there's a chance of that, right? Like we've seen that happen before. So that wouldn't be something that's unique to the Toronto Raptors. But the Jakob Poeltl question in all this has to be answered wholeheartedly, right? You look at it. He has 4 years, all guaranteed, left on his contract. $19.5 million next season, 27.3 after that, 29.4 after that, 27.3 after that. So there's a ton of money that's left on Jakob Poeltl's deal. So if you do try to move off of that, you're probably going to have to give up something significant as far as an unprotected draft pick if a team's going to be able to absorb most of that salary without sending salary back themselves, right? So let's talk about the both case scenarios of this. Even though I think that it's slim to none, right, is that, what's the reasons for keeping Jakob Poeltl? He has some size. He's a really good screen setter still, rebounder. And, I do think I don't know if you still want to say he's dependable presence on the inside, but he is a consistent presence on the inside when he's healthy. Legit 7-footer, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 70% shooting from the field last year. Only took in 6 shots per game, so it's not like he needs a lot of shots. But the days that you look at Jakob Poeltl as averaging a near double-double, it seems like those may be done. And he's 30 years old, and this is why giving deals to players, I know 30 is not old in real life by any stretch of the imagination, but giving big deals to players that are going into their 30s always is a crapshoot, especially when it comes down to bigs, right? So those are the reasons for trying to keep him, right? maybe last year was just a bad season for Jakob Poeltl, and maybe he can come back and be better. He played in 46 games. Hopefully he can play more than that. But since getting traded to the Toronto Raptors, he's played 50 and 57 and 46 in his full seasons there. So it's not the same as when he was young and started off his career in Toronto, right? So you have that part that you have to ask yourself about it. But when you look at trading, the reasons to trade Jakob, it's clear. The playoffs, they punish non-shooting bigs. It just is to it. If bigs struggle with playing in space or creating space, it is. The Toronto Raptors need more shooting. They need more mobility, I think, from that big man position as well. We'll talk about that a little bit in the draft. And Jakob Poeltl is just not, he by himself, is he a problem? If he was paid appropriately, no. But with that contract and the raise that's coming up there, with him making clearly over $20 million, Jakob Poeltl has become a bit of a problem for the Toronto Raptors. Then you also get into the Jamal Shead of it all, right? Like, this is an interesting player right now, because if the Raptors are looking to make a move and looking to make an all-in move, would you have to trade Shead while his value is high? That is a legitimate question that you would have to ask here in Jamal Shead in regards to that. He's 23 years old. This is a guy that was picked in the second round at pick 45. He played all 82 games last year, averaged 6.6 points. And while the stat sheet, again, isn't the most standout for him, this is a guy that definitely played well for the Toronto Raptors. Do you want to cash in that value or keep him at 23 years old? Especially if you end up trading Gradey Dick, you probably want to keep Shead there, in my personal opinion. But I think when you look at it, like the toughness, the defense, the energy that he brings, those are winning traits. That contributes. And when you have him and CMB being able to do the things that they're able to do, you clearly have seen how that can help impact this team positively, right? But I'll say this. The reasons to trade him is that teams don't guard him from three. He's a non-factor out there, which further shrinks the playoffs, which further puts and highlights the problems in the half court from the Toronto Raptors. They need more offensively dynamic guards when it comes down to it. Shead is valuable. But what exactly, I think that the Toronto Raptors have to at least listen to the value of Shead if they're going to make some decisions and some choice there, right? So there you have in regards to that one. And then you also have the question when it comes down to this, I think, can Scotty Barnes be a true number one weapon, right? His playoff production showed tons of growth. He led that Toronto Raptors team in all major areas and just looked like a player that's ready to be the engine of a team. But he still needs polish as a scorer. Head coach Darko has talked about that, like what needs to further happen for him to get to that next stage and that next step. And so when your head coach realizes that this is going to be an offseason where Scottie Barnes' growth and coming into training camp and stuff like that and what they see from him could be huge for this team, right? And so when you have your coach and Darko that high on him, it's great. He said this: the experience he's gaining, the confidence he's gaining is going to help him understand that there's more from him to give. For this summer specifically, we're going to focus more on his skill development, his ability to come up with a couple of moves on the dribble to be even better finisher at the rim and continue to work on his shooting as well. Pretty much his overall game still needs to take another jump. Now, some people may look at that and say, hey, is that a bit disrespectful? But hey, I say that shows you what you expect from him after an all-star season, right? And he went on to say this: I expect more from Scotty. Scotty is going to bring more. Scotty right now, the way he's playing, he's at 60% of the player he's going to be in 2 or 3 years. Scotty is going to be one of the best players in the league. He's already one of the best players in the league. That is a glowing statement from your head coach. And that just goes to show, again, how the evaluation of how good Scottie Barnes can be matters so much in this. If he can work out that polish as a scorer, so much is there ahead for them. And I think that's the scary part of all this, is that Scottie Barnes is still very unfinished as a player. So where does that lead you? One of the best options that the Toronto Raptors have this offseason to improve is the number 19th overall pick in this draft. Now, there are some times where the number 19th overall pick is a crapshoot, and it's still that to a degree. Every draft pick is, right? But I think when you look at the players that could be here for the Toronto Raptors at number 19, right? Let's just talk about some of the players that could fall there. This is not a complete list. This is just some of the players that could fall there. Heinz Steinbach, a player that averaged 18.5 points per game, is, not the most mobile big, but is somebody that has that game. Really good rebounder, really good shot blocker, average almost 2.5 stocks per game to go along with 12 rebounds. You bring him in here and get him to play the big for you at the legit 6'11", 200 and almost 50 pounds that he is. It helps a lot. Morez Johnson, another big at 250 pounds, 6'10", 13 points, 7.3 rebounds, 1.1 blocks. But we know he was on that Michigan team with him, Yaxel Lindenberg, Daymar, right? So, what can he flourish as the team's kind of primary big is the question there. You have the upside pick in Jaden Quantance, who's a player that injuries are a big concern for him, but if it wasn't for those injuries, he'd probably be a top 10 or 12 pick in this draft, right? That's not to mention guards that you can go with. A Bennett Stritz, if you want a kind of a more traditional guard there who can score and do some things there, can stretch the floor as well. So there are a lot of options for this Toronto Raptors team to legitimately improve in the draft. The question is, can they wait on the development of those young pieces, or will they be a little bit more open and willing to maybe cash in on that draft pick and use the Jakob Poeltl contract or anything else to get a more proven talent, right? That's a question that you have to ask there. If I'm the Toronto Raptors, I think Scottie Barnes is young enough. You go, you bet on the talent in this draft. You do all your due diligence in this draft, and you get that. The key things that they need to focus on improving in this offseason is size and rim protection. That's a big thing for them here, right? You do that. I think that's a big thing that you ask. More half-court creation and more kind of floor spacing with the shooter there. Those are things that are going to definitely help you out if you're the Toronto Raptors here. And when you look at the Raptors' financial situation, they're $9 million beneath the first tax apron, which isn't a lot, but it does mean that you do have still your full mid-level exception, even if you're not able to get off Jakob Poeltl's contract. If you're able to get off that and not have to take back the full matching salary on that, you're really having some room to work with and cook and do some other things. So when you look at them, Scottie Barnes at $40 million, Brandon Ingram at $40, Immanuel Quickley at $32 million, RJ Barrett at $29, and those are your biggest contracts coming into this year. Now, while it doesn't offer a ton of future financial flexibility, it's not as bad as where some teams are either. So they have to manage the cap situation, but they're not up as close to it as some other teams are, right? So overall, the Toronto Raptors offseason comes down to how they can go all in and what they do in this draft, and can they add the shooting and size that they're missing to this team. And if they do that, we'll see. Like I said, they are one of the most fascinating teams for me personally heading into this offseason, not because they're rebuilding, but because they're not finished either. And they sit in that perfect middle ground with trying to figure out the way. Scottie Barnes is developing. He's still turning into a great player. And, they have some trade chips that they can cash in and try to decide what they're going to do on. Let me know down below how you guys feel. How do you feel about the Toronto Raptors? What do you think is going to happen with them this offseason? Let me know that down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. You can follow us at NBA Central Pod. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything basketball related. I'll catch you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
Been a presentation of the Breaks Media.